I started thinking about just this range of thoughts that can cross your mind when you're engaged in something, right? You can start to be focused in the moment. You can think about. Well, let me shift it up. So I'm wondering if in those moments, in those satisfying moments, to what extent are you conscious of what's going on? Is like the critical Patrick sitting on your shoulder whispering, this is really cool, keep doing that, or watch out, you didn't hit that mark, or like where's the critical voice in your head during the satisfying, or is it completely gone? Because I talked to some people about some artists. I'm in the studio, the rest of the world does not exist while I'm in the moment, right? It's that flow moment, it's the being in the zone. Or is there like a critical voice always buzzing around while you're in those moments?
Well, it's the audition voice is what I like to call it, right? It's you have an audition tomorrow, so you get the sides, and you have to immediately start discarding all these negative thoughts that start coming in your brain. For instance, well, can't they offer this to me? They know me. I've worked with this producer before. Or this is a job I've done 1,000 times. Can't they, at this point, can't you look at the internet? It's a guy wearing a suit. Can I do this? So I have to allow those thoughts to come in and then discard them immediately because they don't service me. And then I have to work on the things that, again, I can control. And I use control with a small C, not a large C, because we're artists. And you mentioned the zone and the flow. That's where we want to get, right? So I want to stack the deck and make the on-ramp as wide as I can to get to that zone, to let my training and talking and listening, because that's all it's about, talking and listening, given circumstances, talking and listening really. And I want to get myself into that place where I can really do that, so I can receive and then organically respond, because that kind of reality, that kind of thing is what intrinsically hits people, whether they know it or not, even if it's the most reptilian producers and writers in the room. That thing will sing to their core and make them go like, I like that. I'm not sure why. The problem is getting yourself clear of all that. The problem is keeping those voices out of your head. And I've been on auditions that are comical auditions, and all of a sudden I'm 3 laughs into it, and that thought comes racing through your brain like, hey man, you got this. And then immediately the cold thought follows, right? I goes, oh, you're thinking about it. Do you have this? And now you've got this thing where you've stepped outside of yourself. And sometimes it's the director guy saying, you didn't move your arm like that when you rehearsed it. Or, ooh, are you sure you want to do it like that? And then it's also as you're doing it, you can feel it working, but then all of a sudden that critic, or it's not even the critic, just, like I said, it's like, oh, that's going well. Oh, you shouldn't think that. Oh, that's going well. Oh, you shouldn't think that. You shouldn't think that. And then you're outside of yourself, and then all of a sudden you're feeling it's, oh, is it cold in here? No, it's hot. It's clammy. Why did I do this again? What's in their eyes? Are they eating lunch? Oh, he's on the phone. You finish and you walk out and you drive home, and on your way home, that poor steering wheel, right? The steering wheel just gets it all. It gets the audition again. It gets the right joke. It gets this. It gets that. And as I've gotten more experience, I won't even say older, as I've gotten more experience in situations, I'm able to recognize when my deck isn't stacked completely in my favor, when I might be lacking a certain thing. Maybe I'm wobbly on my lines. Maybe I thought I knew them. Maybe I thought I memorized them, but I really didn't. Mm-hmm. Now I'm there and I'm like, oh, I don't really know this. The experience has taught me to not abandon ship, panic, and blow it. Experience has taught me to say, in this particular instance, oh, I'm going to have my sides in my hand. Oh, I'm going to read them. I'm going to read them line by line. It might not get me the job, but it's going to avoid a train wreck of an audition, which in the end, that 5 minutes that you have is your job. Everything else is gravy. Swashbuckling with Xena, well, that's gravy. That's not the job. Your job as an actor, and this is my own opinion because there's 1,000 opinions about this. My opinion is that your job as an actor is to know how to audition, whether you like to or not, whether it's at home with your own iPhone and your Ring, or whether it's on stage, or whether it's in a room with 50 people or 2 people or a casting director and an iPhone turned sideways. Your job is to go and show those people, whoever they are, on the other side of the table, that you know how to act. That given the amount of material you've been given and the amount of time that you've been given, and whether that's good or bad, that's a whole nother discussion. In that moment, in those 3 to 4 minutes, your job is to show them that you are an actor. And this is how you have interpreted what they have given you, given all the things that they've given you. That's it. Maybe you're the answer. Maybe you're not. And it might not have anything to do with whether you're talented, prepared, or anything else. You most likely will never know. And then you'll get the job. And then you'll do something like, oh, I should do that thing I did last time because that got me the job. Maybe it did. Maybe it didn't. I've certainly got jobs I didn't deserve from the audition, in my opinion. And I've certainly not gotten jobs that I absolutely deserve. I can't believe they cast that guy. And then you see them. Then you see them on the cover of Rolling Stone or something. You're like, what? That whole storm and drum, that never leaves. I felt that since high school. That never leaves. But as I've gotten older and had more experience, there's enough room for everybody to sort of do everything. And if you thought you were going to be Brad Pitt, I can guarantee you, you're most likely going to be disappointed. Because I don't know how you become Brad Pitt. I don't think even he would tell you he knew how he was going to become Brad Pitt. That's opportunity, circumstance, and a whole bunch of things that are like any job, no matter what job you do, there's a certain amount of degree of fate involved with it. So your job is to audition, but your job is there's a lot of work that nobody cares that you do. Mm-hmm. Do you need to drink green juice? Do you need to meditate? Do you need to go to therapy? Do you need to make sure you get to bed at 8 o'clock the night before? Do you stay out late and party? Do you not? Do you do this? Do you wake up and work out? Do you have a routine? Do you need a routine? Do you need a ritual? How do you memorize? Michael Conley, a teacher at Penn State, told me at the very beginning, memorization is the lowest form of intelligence for an actor. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you have to write it on a bathroom mirror. I don't care if you have to sing. I don't care if you have to listen to a Walkman or an iPod. I don't care if you write it down in longhand. I don't care if you type it or record it or talk to your mommy or whatever. Get it done. Get it done. I believe in that. Now, some people don't. Some people are like, no, the words must come to me, and that's cool too. Mm-hmm. For me, at a practical level, in tools, memorize your stuff. Memorize your stuff. You can judge it all you want later when you're talking to other people. The writing might be good, the writing might be bad, doesn't matter. It's the writing that's at hand, and it's the writing that's going to get you a job. So unless you're going to rewrite it in front of the writer, that's totally your call as well. And my suggestion is like, learn it. So that's a tool to stack your deck in the favor. And then afterwards, if it didn't cut your way, if you didn't get the job, and I haven't gotten the job most of the time, I have not gotten the job. I have auditioned and auditioned and auditioned and auditioned. I auditioned for collectively 20 years for 2 different shows and never got maybe I got a call back. I don't know, but I never got the job. So I spent all that time trying to get that job and I didn't get that job. What am I going to do with that? Well, I can get bitter about it and everybody who worked on it. I can get angry about the casting director who wasn't on my side, or I can be mad at my agents or my manager, or any of that kind of cliche stuff, or I can figure out a way to let it go.
Got it.
Let it go. Stop clogging your brain with the thing that didn't happen and open yourself up and your mind and your brain and your energy into the universe, if you want to get hippy-dippy about it, to the thing that's waiting for you to come in. It may not be the thing you think you want. It may not be the starting role in this thing that you thought you want, but it might be, it might be the Shakespeare Festival that has 5 jokes for you and then you get an agent. It might be that. So
show up. I love this idea of the audition, right? Focusing on the audition, because essentially what you're saying is each opportunity is an audition, even when you have the role, right? Those 5 jokes, I'm auditioning each time for each of these 5 jokes, right? Show up, do what you do, show them what you do. Take what is given to you, take that space, the material, the moment, and show up and show what you got.
Well, from being with teammates, people notice your work ethic. People notice your ability to keep your ego at bay. Mm-hmm. You're not the lead in this team. He's the lead. Is he being overpaid? Probably. But are we going to be mad at him? Are we going to gossip on set and show your ugly side, show your bitter side? That's not going to. Look, it's a business with a lot of people who want to get in. Mm-hmm. And you find that people will want to work with you because they want to work with you. A good attitude goes a long way. It's long hours. It's tight. Everyone wishes they got paid more. Everyone's mad at their proverbial Brad Pitt ahead of them. You know what I mean? and we're all working on this thing. And then there's life that also goes with it. We pursue this wonderful, and I don't want to say fantasy life because it implies that it's. But we do pretend for a living. It's hard work to pretend, and it takes a collective to pretend like this. But there are marriages, there's children, there's school, there's sickness, and there's life. politics and war and climate change and all the real things that the scroll deaths of IG and Twitter will give you all the time. That infiltrates you as you drive to the set as well. And you talked about your friend who got to the studio and was able to like put it all away. And what a gift. What a gift when you get to go to a job where you don't have to re-plug back into the world. You get to plug into, what am I doing today? Oh, I'm this guy. I'm a crooked cop. Oh, I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer again. All right, I'll be a lawyer again.
Look, I was thinking, we could talk about what excites you, or what comes up. You've already nodded at, the last season of Better Call Saul, and the thing that goes through actors' minds is, okay, that's it. That's the last thing I do. Certainly you have other things that maybe you're thinking about working on, that you're excited about. We could certainly go there. But I'm also interested in picking up on the idea that you just dropped, which is there's so many things going on in the world to consider and to enter our mental space that we have to deal with every single day. In this series of interviews that I've done over I was going to say over the years, it's over the months, but this past year, the pandemic feels like every month is a year in and of itself. Our lives have been disrupted and modified in so many different ways due to the pandemic, but there are other pieces, man. There's the increased visibility and conversations about racial injustice and systemic racism. There's political discord, climate change, other social issues. There's the political and the rifts. There's the cancel culture. I mean, it seems like there's so many elements to the world, to our daily existence that are happening. Oh, and there's a global pandemic on top that prevents us from interacting the ways we want to. Can you help us reflect, if you would, a little bit on what this past, since last March, right? Now what month is this, Patrick? This is May of 2021.
What month is this, right? It's the beginning of the unmasking part of the year is what it feels like, right? All of a sudden, We're starting to be able to drop masks and be outside and do stuff like that. When the pandemic hit, there was a couple of things that I was reminded I was thankful for. First, I was glad I was an actor, weirdly, and the reason was this. I'm used to being unemployed. And it's not like the woe is me. I'm used to knowing what it's like to be between jobs. And so when this hit, I was finishing up the second season of Special, which is coming out on Netflix this year. And I play a guy, I play the oldest person on the show in that show. That's the first time that's happened. That's fun.
So you're the teacher of a kindergarten class. Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm the loving mom on the side. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my God. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, I know how to, and this goes to like being an actor. When you're making money, and I'm not talking about like making faucets of money. I'm talking about just making some money as a guest star, as an actor. If you look at my resume again, I've been around for a long time, but I haven't made a fortune. I've been able to sustain. And part of the reason I've been able to sustain is because I know how to not spend money when I'm not working. And that's important because otherwise then you end up having to carve into, I've been very, very lucky that when I stopped waiting tables, I haven't had to wait tables again. I haven't had to get a straight job, so to speak, since then. So when I came into money, every now and then I would save it and stuff like that. And that's real important. It's real important to keep a low overhead. So when the pandemic hit and the opportunity for work shut down, I had put some stuff away. Part of that's because I'm married to a very smart woman. And two, I also have two kids. I got, an 8 and 10-year-old daughter. And so when you have children, at least when I started having children, you started really not thinking of yourself and putting money away for them. And just sort of, you start saving a little bit more. You just, as a natural act, because college and all those other things are looming. And no, I didn't raid my kids' college fund, but we knew how to, bring it down. Cook at home, stay at home. And I live in Los Angeles, so we still were able to go to the beach, go to the mountains and stuff like that. We stayed out. What I found was that, boy, I go to the theater a lot. I go to the theater for live music. I go to the theater to see theater. I go to the Marte Perform. I'm a season subscriber there. I go to the Pantages to see all the Broadway musicals that come through town. I go to the Kirk Douglas down in Culver City. We would go to the opera. We would go to Disney Hall. These are things I love to do. I love to patronize the arts. because I love the arts and I love to see all the other kinds. And when that was taken away, you're like, oh, which sounds like such a luxury, right? Oh, you couldn't go to the theater anymore. What a poor boy. You know, people lost their jobs and had food lines. I understand that. I'm saying I'm lucky about that. But what it put for me and the emphasis was how much the arts are a part of my life. And frankly, how much the arts are a part of everybody's lives. The Pantages wasn't just filled with actors who were going to see other actors. It's filled every night with people all over this city getting their dose of storytelling. And that included concerts. The Hollywood Bowl was one of my favorite places on earth in the middle of the summer to go listen to the orchestra or to listen to Aerosmith, you know, come through and play. My biggest regret before the pandemic is that I didn't spend a stupid amount of money because I hadn't gotten tickets to go see Lana Del Rey do a hometown concert at the Hollywood Bowl. Now, I would have been, well, maybe not the only, but one of the few 56-year-old white guys up there watching it, knowing all the words, which might have been awkward, but so maybe I would. And I want to touch about that. So look, I talked before about knowing who you are. There's a culture shift that's going on in a great way. And with all the political unrest, you know, I took my kids, we did the Black Lives Matter marches here during the pandemic on Hollywood Boulevard. Wow. I live in the Valley. It's a pretty safe, bucolic existence. Mm-hmm. And yet they boarded up all the stores on Ventura Boulevard, not 2 blocks from where I live, because of all the unrest that was going on, all the disinformation that's out there and all the anger. And I'm a 56-year-old white guy. I have the benefit of everything for this last century, right? And I might be part of the last couple of generations of really reaping that sort of blind, oh, well, of course it goes my way. Well, of course it goes my way. And at a practical level, I'll tell you this. When I got into the business back in the early 90s, I don't say this glibly, but every guest star, if it was the judge, or the doctor, or the lawyer, or the accountant, it just went to a white guy. It didn't go to a white girl. It went to a white guy. Every pilot I read was basically like 4 or 5 white guys and a pretty girl. And this was like hundreds of pilots for years. And in terms of an actor looking like this and being that age, work was plentiful. Opportunity for work was plentiful. And thankfully, the pendulum has swung back now to more reflect the nation, who we are. And what I found on a practical level is all of a sudden, those roles that were just always there, sort of like low-hanging fruits, like, oh, I didn't get a pilot, but you'll get this. There's a recurring coming up. It'll be you. Mm-hmm. Well, those are gone. Now I'm on the other end of the scale. So if you're a white guy over 50, you're not the first choice. And it's not because, well, I can't say this for sure. It's not because Fox or CBS wants to be politically correct. And there's a whole argument you can have about that. I mean, at some point, if you're not going to represent the world the way the world is, if you're going to represent the way the world is, that's the way it's going to fall out, especially if it's been the other way for so long. And so as I enter the workforce again, I'm girding my loins for the idea of what it was like, because I've been on a show now for 6-7 years, and it's in that time frame that both the Me Too era, right, Black Lives Matter has happened. There's a big shift, and I keep talking to myself because I'm like, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. I'm talking to some of my friends, and it is different, and it's not a bitch. It's a practical, clear-eyed assessment of my work opportunities coming up, and I'm glad that my other friends, because the other friends I have, friends of color and females, who have had the same 20-year arc with me, have not had the same 20-year arc of opportunity. Right. And that needs to change. And it thankfully is changing, which is really great. And does that mean I'm going to take a hit? Probably, but I've had a great run. I mean, part of it's like, look, my okay boomer and my also, I'm trying to think of the right words. I know there's a phrase for it. I'm blind to my own mini racism. I'm blind to my own sense of entitlement, just because of who I am and my existence. So I can see around the corner and I can analyze a little bit, but I would be lying if I say I'm still not subjected to the fact that I've been the benefit of this system that does not benefit enough people in this nation. And so it's going to be interesting for me coming out of this, seeing how this all turns. And I welcome it. It's great. I just got done doing a film shoot where I was a producer on it. And one of the great things it has going for it is that I'm a producer on it only because I'm married to the writer-director. And no, I didn't get a part because it's for young people, if you must know. And but my wife is, she's over 40. It's her first feature, so that's great. We have a female DP from Kosovo, and the other 3 producers are all women. The story is female forward, female friendly, and it's got more women than it's got men in it. And I found that my best capacity in helping out this project was keeping my mouth shut and making sure everybody had coffee. Nobody needed me to mansplain what I thought the 2-shot ought to be. Nobody needed me to mansplain what I thought the joke was. Because even when my wife was handing the script out, the response I would see from people, I realized, I'm the guy listening to classic rock from the 60s, because they were laughing at jokes that intrinsically were not for me. It wasn't written with me in mind. It wasn't written for my pleasure. It was written for somebody else. And as an artist, I like seeing that. I like being like, oh, right. And that just reminds me that if I'm acknowledging that, then I'm still kind of closed-minded. And there's a lot ahead to see where it's going to go. And I'm excited about that. I'm open to it. I'm open to whatever the next adventure is, however it goes. But, I've got one more bit. Raising 2 girls or children at all in this culture, in this nation right now is hard. It's hard in the way of like, how do you disseminate a shared set of facts? How do you disseminate a shared set of existence? What's right and wrong? What's good, evil? Who's the enemy? And that's when it sounds like a banner or a bleeding heart liberal thing, but I think that's why we need the arts more than ever. You need stories to reflect back on society, all strata of society, the stories and the things that are going on now, because I think that's where you're going to end up finding truth. You're going to find out this extraordinary time that we're living through in a play in 10 years. A great Angels in America, Tony Kushner.
Rick Lombardo, the director of the School of Theater, directed that here just before the pandemic, just before.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, there's a work of art that encompasses a giant 800-pound gorilla subject and brings clarity and focus and thought and song into it, basically, right? You come away with a feeling and a sense of something, or at least a place where you can sift through to a truth about humanity. And isn't that what we're doing ultimately? And so these times are crazy, and I'm curious to see what the art will be in 5 and 10 years. I suppose you can akin it to like when all the Vietnam movies started coming out in the late 70s, right? Such a reaction to what they had grown up with and what they'd seen, and now a freedom to go ahead and express it. You watch The Deer Hunter, or you watch all those things, and you go, oh, these people are artists reacting to their lives. So and you know what? Here's a practical thing. Guess what? There's a lot of white guy villains in Congress right now. So this guy, you know what? I can play Jeff Flake. I can play Kevin McCarthy.
I'm not going to be able to look at CNN the same way anymore.
Any roles? I'm like, no, I'll go work in foreign films. I'll go work in Italy, and they won't know if I'm Donald Trump or Jeff Flake. They don't care. They're like, he's the guy from Better Call Saul. He's good. He's a politician. He's bad American. Sign me up, man. I've never been to Parma. Sounds great. Are we shooting in the summer?
I appreciate your response to that question. It took some turns there that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, with regard to your response, you talked about blind spots or masked spots of your own privilege. I would push back on you there. I think you're aware that you have them, right? So whether you know where those spots are is different from just ignoring them or saying that they don't exist. You acknowledge that there may be parts of your vision through your privileged space. You're aware, right? I think that's a key piece, and acknowledge it. But the other part of it is, and you said it obviously much more eloquently than I'm going to try to get this out here, Patrick, is although it might feel like or seem like roles are being taken from you, 56-year-old white guys, it's not about taking away. It's about affording opportunities that were not provided or presented previously, or that need to be presented, because there's this thing called equity. We're not talking about equality. We're talking about equitable. We're talking about representative. We're talking about opening up. This is the thing I say quite often. It's about making possibilities possible. It's opening up the possibilities and allowing for opportunities and spaces to be inhabited and to be responded to, because they're necessary and because it's right. And so, as you're talking about, the world's changing. As if there's an audience and you're only presenting particular kinds of works and focusing on a particular kind of audience, you're missing an entire range of experiences, of viewers, of engagements. And so, your approach to acknowledging and speaking to your white privilege is so powerful. Look, I can't speak to what it means to be a 56-year-old white guy. I can speak to what it means to be a 56-year-old person of color. This guy who presents visually as African American, but there's also Native American and Irish. So I'm this mixed identity person who presents as a person of color. We can talk all day about what it means to be a 56-year-old male in this country, but when we start to talk about, well, drive down the highway, right? When we talk about, when I walk my dog, if I'm wearing my hoodie, what does that mean? Thank goodness I have a couple of Penn State hoodies. So it kind of, I'm not saying anything about the local space here, but what I'm saying is the ways in which we present ourselves and identities in the world have as much to do about how we look and maybe more about how we are read and perceived elsewhere. So to have the sensibility of and reflect on your own, as you mentioned, blind spots or masked perspectives. This is such an important conversation, an important response that you gave. I would love to focus more on that. This might not be the space to do it. Certainly, when you're back here
Sure.
in the fall, we can do that. But I just wanted to pause because there are a couple other questions I want to get to. But I did want to take time to say I really appreciate the way you responded to that question. And I think we need more responses like that in the world. I think we need more conversations around this subject. So
No, absolutely. Although I will point out the word I was searching for that I couldn't remember was privilege.
So that's another word on our vocabulary list.
I couldn't think of it. I couldn't think of it just. Oh my God.
Well, there it is. So thinking about just a few more questions here. So we'll have you return in the fall of 21, receive your alumni award. Part of that experience is engaging with our students. We'll have 19 and 20-year-old, we'll have undergraduate students. They could be first year, second year students. They could be graduate students. I'm concerned about asking this question because it opens up to just a range of ways you could respond, all of which are going to be fantastic. What should they expect from your visit?
They should expect that when I leave, they're going to say, does he understand that he's an old man? Does he understand that? Does he get that he's like 35 freaking years older than we are? They're going to say things like this. Who's Huey Lewis in the news? I don't know. This is that thing of like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, guess what? I thought I was going to be a rock and roller. I think in my brain, because every person thinks like, I'm going to be Mick Jagger or something, right? I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be Johnny Depp. That's what I'm going to be. Johnny Depp or Brad Pitt. And that's what I'm going to be doing. And it turns out I live in the Valley with my wife and 2 kids and 2 dogs. And I have a Toyota Highlander that's got about 75,000 miles on it. And rock and roll for me, and this is no shit, is if I can make it to Costco, Ralph's, and Trader Joe's all in the same day without any bad parking situations, ring the bell. I'm a winner. And that just speaks to like a life existence. But along the way, I don't know. I I hope if anything, they can expect that you're going to find somebody who is still as thrilled with being an actor as I was when I was at Penn State. Because I tell you what, life is short, and I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't working out for me in the way that I wanted it to work out. There is no shame and there's no glory in sticking around, beating your head against the wall, feeling bad about whatever it is you're doing. But if you can make it work, if you can stick with it, if things break your way and things line up and you can find yourself in an existence that's either in the mainstream of the arts or right along the shore, I think it's a great existence. And I've watched people from all heights, people who've been like superstars, people who make their living in a regional theater circuit, people who dip in and out of those sort of things. It all is waves. It all sort of the ladder. I mean, this goes back to like, lots of pieces of advice, but one of them is just don't be an asshole, because everyone's going up and down that ladder. No one's staying at the same part. And so as you're crossing paths with one another, it's just good to be kind to one another, that we're lucky that we're on set. And it's unfortunate we're all getting paid $100 a day, or it's unfortunate that I had to bring my own wardrobe and they burned it. And it's unfortunate this script is like easily the worst thing I've ever read in my life. But I'm having fun with my scene partner. Yeah, it's raining, but oh, this director, he's young, but this DP, she's really got a good handle on what's going on. I don't know what their next projects are, but I hope they think of me. I hope they remember that I was standing in the rain, getting paid nothing with a burnt costume, because maybe that's Steven Spielberg, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's Ava DuVernay. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And maybe they'll have me in a project in 4 or 5 years. Maybe it's a kid's show. I don't want to do a kid's show. Maybe it's with puppets. I don't want to work with puppets. Maybe it becomes this worldwide hit on Netflix and make children think I'm Superman because I'm the guy who's the purple puppet guy. I don't know. I don't know what's around the corner. When I was 19, I said, I don't know what's next. And I'm 56 and I'm still looking around the corner saying, I don't know what's next.
I like that. So one of the questions, this is the last bigger question, then I have a series of 5 really fast ones to pull this together.
Cool. I don't think you'll have a problem with this, but I have to send this to you in advance. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'll have a problem.
So here's the question. One of the things that I usually ask guests is, what advice would they have given to their younger selves, to their undergraduate self? You've sort of given us this advice. You're saying, as you're climbing up the ladder, and you go up and down the ladder, people pass you and come back down. Kind of be kind to folks, because watch out for your fingers. There are feet up above, and watch out, for your feet. There might be hands pulling on you, or that was one piece that I pulled from you. But is there a bit of advice you would give to your younger Patrick?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's 2 things. And you can say I'm a dad, and that's okay, because I am. Guess what? My dad was right. And so was Jim Hoskins, who was my dance instructor at Penn State. He told me when I first got there, he said, hey, do yourself a favor. Take 10% of every check you get. I don't care if it's $10 or $100,000, and put it in an account that you don't touch until you're 50 years old. You do that. You start that now when you're 19. I don't care what the size of the check is. And you commit to doing that. 10% of the gross of your check goes into an account that you don't touch. And you will be amazed how much money you have when you're 50. And that goes to save your money. Don't spend beyond your means. I got into credit card trouble when I was in graduate school, because at that point I was 20 or 21 and I could sign my own name and get a credit card. Well, I spent a lot of time having to dig myself out of a lot of debt. And as a young artist, you should be able to be free to work for nothing. You should be able to say, yeah, I can go out to the Catskills this weekend and shoot that film. Why? Because I don't have any debt, because I don't have any overhead. So I don't have to stay and work 3 shifts that weekend because I've pissed it away on a credit card. Giving yourself the flexibility to be a starving artist, basically. Don't get into debt. You don't need things. Don't clutter yourself up. There'll be plenty of time to accumulate crap in your life later. The second thing is this. Don't smoke. Don't smoke. Don't smoke and don't vape. You don't look cool. It's not cool at all. It hasn't been cool since the 1940s when Laura McCall did it, and it kills you. It kills your instrument. It makes you winded, makes you look old, especially ladies, and it will kill you and those around you. I'm a big advocate for that. Don't get lung cancer. Don't give it to anybody. And that goes to this too. I know I'm a party pooper now. Here's what, I'm not a party pooper. You do whatever you want in your free time. I can tell you this, I never stayed late at the party and got a job. I never was the last guy hanging around the bar and got a job. I never was there at 2:30 in the morning and booked a job. But I can tell you I was the last guy at last call and showed up hungover at audition. And I slept through opportunities and I became red and puffy. Now, I'm not saying anybody has a drinking problem or anything like that. Drugs and alcohol, which I started when I was at Penn State, unfortunately became a part of my life and took over my life. They're no longer a part of my life. I am one of those people known as an alcoholic. And I don't mind saying that because that's what I am. I've been sober now for about 15 years and it's reclaimed my life and my artistic life as well. And I'm not saying that you should be that either. I'm not saying you are that, but I am saying that if you think that doing drugs and drinking is what makes you an artist, I would like to disabuse you of that. Because in my experience, both personally and watching around me, that includes people at Penn State, people who have been in professional business in New York and Los Angeles and all over this country, I haven't seen drugs and alcohol enhance people's careers very often. And if you have an issue with it and you think you might have an issue with it, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to, there's a solution. There are many solutions and you can seek them out and not have it be a yoke on you. And you know if I'm talking to you or if I'm not. But again, I never stayed late at a party and got a job is really the bottom line on that. You do what you want. But stack the deck in your favor if you want to get a job.
I usually follow those responses, Patrick, with statements or questions such as, would young Patrick have heeded that advice? But in your response, you let us know that actually you learned about that advice because you were behaving in ways that were different from what that advice would recommend. It's good advice. And I also appreciate how you were throughout this conversation, you've referenced recently with that question, being a dad and referring to your children. We have a 12-year-old daughter. And so I'm, listening to that advice, I'm identifying with the responses that you're giving, the passion that you're giving, and reflecting on my own life choices and how they inform the kind of advice we give to the generations that follow, and our children specifically. If we think about any young person or person younger than we are who's willing to listen to any advice we have.
Right, and I realize that it's sort of a lost. Maybe it's a lost cause, but it is a reality that I saw. I've seen many talented people not give themselves an opportunity to be talented.
Yeah.
And and sometimes that just comes with the road. Although I do believe this generation is much more open and vocal about all those sort of things. They're much more aware of the nomenclature, how to even talk about it, because it's been in their lives. They can identify things like that. So maybe it hits, maybe it doesn't. But I'm not a party pooper. Just because I couldn't handle it doesn't mean anybody else can.
Yeah, no, you're putting it out there, and I think it's really important. And I guess last thing I'll say about this question in your response is I deeply appreciate how you are just so forthcoming and relating it to your own experience and the lessons that you've learned. I know how difficult it would be for some people to provide their own life story or their own experience as the example. I tend to do that as well, to provide it, because I can speak from my experience. I can tell you how it affected me. I can't say that it's going to map directly on your experience, but I'm going to tell you what, this is what happened to me, and these are the choices that I made given the situation. The way in which you respond to the situation will be yours, but at least you have one example to put in conversation with the example of your own experience and your own choices and the consequences that can follow. So
yeah, it's hard enough as it is. So
absolutely.
Just stack the deck, whatever you have to do.
That's it. All right, listen, 5 questions. This is not necessarily a game show. but it certainly is, it's set up, it could be set up that way. So I'm going to give you a question, give me a response back. We can play a little bit of question and answer ping pong. Here we go. Your favorite flavor at the Penn State Creamery?
Oh, mint chocolate chip.
Good answer. Where did you live when you were here at Penn State?
Geary Hall, when there was a giant parking lot. Parking lot 80 was the decision at 8 a.m. when the wind blew across it, whether you were going to go to class. I had to because it was in theater, and Jim Hoskins would literally walk to your door and be like, "Where are you?" if you didn't. But it's not a parking lot. I understand it's now all buildings all the way over to Geary.
There you go. So you've mentioned several people so far who have been influential, but a person or persons of influence during your time at Penn State?
Oh, Michael Connolly, Jim Hoskins, Bill Kelly, Bob Leonard, Helen and Lowell Manful, and Tom. Oh my God, I'm missing Tom's last name. Denver Center of the Arts. Tom McNally. Tom McNally. Fantastic. Yeah.
It's a great list of people.
Yes.
Can you name, let's see, a defining moment or defining experience?
At Penn State?
At Penn State.
My first thought was like, oh, the first time I went up to see, they would post a list of the cast like on Sunday. We'd all run up to the theater probably to see it. I think the first couple of times I went and saw the shows posted, and it dawned on me that I wasn't going to play Hamlet as an 18-year-old, and I wasn't going to be the lead. I was like, oh, that was sort of defining in that I was like, oh, my expectations are completely askew as to what this is. And I kept moving on. So that was good.
That's a good moment. That's a reset learning moment, right?
That's that learning moment. I'm like, oh, check yourself. That's a check yourself moment. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Last of these 5 questions. What was or what is now your favorite spot on campus?
Wow. Well, you know what? The last time I was there was probably 2-3 years ago, and everything, of course, had changed in such a big way. You know, room 6 in the theater building was probably my favorite spot because I spent a lot of time there, and I may or may have not made out with a couple of girls there as well. So
okay, there will be no follow-up question to that response. Patrick, this has been fantastic talking to you today. I would be understating the reality if I said I was not looking forward to having you here in the fall. I'm really very much looking forward to having you here in the fall. I know the students are thrilled that you are an alumni award recipient and will be here in the fall. Spending time here back on campus. You're welcome to come back before then, obviously, but when you show up in the fall, we'll be ready for you, and we're looking forward to it. So thanks so much for taking time today to chat, and we'll see you in the fall.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. Nice to meet you. And again, I apologize for being late.
No worries. Good to meet you. Take care.
All right. Yeah.